not advocating flat earth theory. I am advocating logic and reason. So people accidentally believing in something that may or may not be true, if they're right. So again, anything with a positive or negative, not to fall for black and white fallacies. If the earth is neither a sphere or globe or flat, and it's something else entirely, then both of these camps are incorrect. But the point is, that aside, if you're looking at something with a 50-50 chance of being right, you can accidentally guess it without being logical, without being scientific. So what I do on these logical analyses, which of course flat earth is excellent for developing logic, because you can see whether an argument has validity or not, what logical fallacies are being fallen for, are the people purporting to be on the side of science actually on the side of scientism. So in a way, this has nothing to do with flat or globe earth. It's simply looking at the differences between coincidence theorists and conspiracy theorists, aka critical thinkers, and whether or not coincidence theorists even understand the conspiracy being alleged, which most of the time they don't. Most of the time they're so triggered, they just spin out with cognitive dissonance and all of these biases and have to default to faith and fallacies, often with amusing results. That's why I have postulated in the past that flat earth theory might actually be a psyop, but for the wrong reasons. Is there some kind of concerted effort just push forward discord, just civil unrest, by causing people to believe the earth is flat by using such poor defenses? Because it's hard to believe that supposed NASA scientists and all of these academics are putting forth poor arguments for the globe when legitimate arguments do exist. Again, whether the argument is legitimate or not, obviously, we have to doing all these things, it doesn't mean something people are true. But at least, is the line of inquiry legitimate? Is the reasoning sound for these arguments? And that is what we are exploring today. Today we're looking at the studio interview. It is the conspiracy theory. So of course right over there you have extreme bias, circular reasoning, logical analysis, etc. So we know what we're in for. But the quick description here, astrophysicist Brad E. Tucker faces off with flat earther Mark Sargent over the flat earth conspiracy theory, as opposed to over the shape of the earth, which would be a little bit more accurate. Anyway, as always, if you enjoy Mindshock, you can donate to our PayPal. Just check the link in the description. Make sure you subscribe to the channel, hit the bell for notifications. Make sure you allow your device to have those notifications come through. Or you can just go to youtube.com/Mindshock and manually peruse the Mindshock catalog, including the most mind-shocking topics and logical analyses, conspiracy theories, paranormal and true crime cases, with logic and reason at the forefront, not faith and fallacies, which is pretty much all you see on the mainstream media. Questions, comments, theories, thoughts, suggestions, rebuttals, debunkings of any kind, leave them in the comment section. You can also check us out, Twitter, Facebook, Reddit, and Patreon. Patrons do get priority for case topic, logical analysis requests for podcasters. You could also be a guest on the podcast yourself, depending on your tier. And if you like this particular podcast, hit that like button, share it across the platform. Let's bring logic and reason back to the world, not frantically and desperately grasping to one model over another, or just having this silly and illogical desperation to be on Team A versus Team B. Sheep-minded thinking or lack thereof. So let's jump in.
Around on Earth, you notice that it looks and feels flat, and you can believe to millions around the globe to believe that the world is flat. The Flat Earth movement is documented in the Netflix movie Behind the Curtain. It's today's conspiracy theory that we're tackling as part of our Conspiracy Week series, and we have people from both sides. We have flat earther Mark Sargent, who joins us live from Seattle, as well as our space expert, Brad E. Tucker. Nice to see you. Mark, let's go to you first.
So, again, this is one of the conspiracy week where they're tackling conspiracy. Sounds like damage control for the establishment, and of course, mainstream media just puppets for establishment thinking, dogma of the past. And let's see what they bring forward here.
What exactly is the flat earth model?
Sure. Flat Earth model says that we are not living on this little blue globe flying through space at incredible velocities in an impossible universe. We are living on a stationary...
So right there on the bottom they have a little disclaimer, flat or round. We debunk the flat Earth as opposed to logically neutral scientifically examine evidence for and against whatever theory. So they made it very, very clear that they're just mouthpieces for establishment dogma and science theory because it was
flat, round disc that is covered by a dome, and it's, despite what your model says, there's not floating in space. It could be sitting anywhere. It could be sitting on my desk right now.
So again, their propaganda, they have this 3D rendering, again, appeal to incredulity logical fallacy, where they're trying to make it so silly. They're trying to pretend that flat earthers believe the earth is flat within the... Which again, some flat earthers believe is an infinite plane. So there is this intellectual dishonesty or this handling grace or sheer stupidity where they don't understand the flat earth model and they develop the idea and the lack of evidence. Nor do they fully understand what the flat earthers are alleged. But would they even need to go to such lengths if it really were that
And Mark, when did you first come across the flat earth theory? Or is it something you thought yourself?
Oh man, we're in for some jokes and keep going this way.
By any stretch. I looked into it in 2014, like most people on the Flat Earth theory, and created something called Flat Earth. And that was in the beginning of 2015, and 4 years later, we got 9 conferences this year, we have a documentary, tons of podcasts, and we're growing like crazy.
So actually, I just like to interrupt here. Like, one of the points here is that you're communicating to us via satellite and via a round globe.
You're communicating to us. Communicating.
So this educated guy interrupts to fallaciously state, and we'll get into why it's fallacious in a moment, but he wanted to jump in. He wanted
If there's dirty deeds need doing, I'll do them dirt cheap.
Time to impress.
Introducing your champion.
Just want to give a shout out to all my fans watching. Hola!
Hold on, fellas. I never did finish Jump Master training. Combust.
걱정 마. I'll find you.
Master, no stray and no. Say we land here. Enough landing around. Good thing I'm inside the ring. Watch your side and never quit.
Together, we will slaughter our enemies.
Mate, I wasn't born to be subtle.
This is your champion.
Move it or die.
There's a thin line between life and death.
Hold on tight. I never did finish Jump Master training.
I'm the jump master. No straying now.
Try not to blink. You may miss me.
Let's land here. Get ready. Moving up.
Hands off, that's a prezi for Fusey. 30 on the clock. Let's move. Here's the cargo, boss. Dibs. 10 seconds and the ring's close. I'm just taking the piss. Reckon I could make use of that. Half the squad's are dust, and the rest are dust in waiting.
Care package.
Got us a care package coming in.
Wanted to play gotcha and make Mark Sargent look stupid instead of having a good faith discussion. And that's important to note here. So he's automatically looking to these intellectually unless he's really that dumb, but let's see how this unfolds.
Right? There is no way for your signal to get here right now to our studio via a flat surface.
There's no way for the signal to get to the studio except on a spherical globe. You cannot do any communicating via flat ground. Alright, let's see how Mark Sargent responds here.
Unless most of the communications are done with fiber optics in the water, which they are. Satellites, by the way, I don't say that I don't believe in satellites. I'm just saying that the NASA High Altitude Balloon Program, which has been going on since the 1950s, can carry a lot more bandwidth and a lot more payload than rockets ever could.
That's right, and I work on that project, thank you. And in fact, you know what? We actually had someone, so Felix Baumgartner.
Wait, okay, so you can see how triggered this guy is. So he says, that's right. So he's admitting that Mark Sargent is correct. So did he just admit he was a moron for bringing up the fact that communication can only happen via spherical globe? So he completely, again, glosses over the fiber optic communication network laid underwater, which, of course, I don't know what the exact percentage is, 90-something%. The majority of communications all occurs by these cables. So did he just agree that he was a complete fool for bringing up the point, trying to interrupt and play gotcha? And you could see just from his micro expressions that he was getting worried when Mark Sargent actually knew what he was talking about. Again, I'm not talking about knew what he was talking about in terms of the shape of the Earth. I am not alleging that in any way. But knew what he was talking about in terms of general technology, communication, just basic science. Because I guess he automatically assumed Mark Sargent was just going to be this illiterate goofball with no points whatsoever. Because why would he believe in a flat Earth? Whatever. But this guy got so triggered. His only response there was, that's right, I actually worked on that program. So he's so insecure. He is so desperate to be seen as some kind of scientism priest authority that his ego couldn't handle that Mark Sargent, a flat earther, just made him look like a silly moron on national television in Australia. So he had to grasp at these straws, desperately proving how insecure and silly he is. And now he immediately does this hard pivot to Felix Baumgartner. He completely abandons the communication argument. And he goes to Felix Baumgartner. So some guy doing some kind of high altitude jump, that's his go-to when he's made to look silly. I mean, this guy is a supposed astrophysicist working on NASA program. He can't bring any science to the table.
Felix Baumgartner, he was this, essentially NASA got a crazy Austrian to jump from a large balloon. And one of the cool things in the video you see is he sees the curvature of the Earth from these high-altitude balloons. Like, you can actually go on right now.
I sent a snapshot of Felix Baumgartner jump, the Red Bull jump, because the curvature of the Earth from there, from 130,000 feet, is so severe that it means the entire world is about the size of Arizona. And so I also sent a video and the balloon thing, which you just saw. Look, we've got balloon footage at 120,000 feet, which is absolutely flat. So who's right? Felix Baumgartner, a severe curvature, or us? And it's not even us that sent up the balloons.
Well, it's actually me, because I'll show you in a second. I took a photo.
So he's taking all these photos. He's apparently, he said he designed some of this or whatever, and he doesn't know what a fisheye lens is. I mean, this guy is a supposed astrophysicist. I mean, is he just that severely triggered and his cognitive dissonance tripped that hard? Because right out of the gate, he tries to play gotcha with Mark Sargent about communication not being possible. But does he really know? I mean, he must know that, you know, ground positioning systems and all of these underwater cables are the primary method of communication. He must know that, I guess? Or is this just the dumbest astrophysicist they can find? Where, I mean, he's not even at a 4-year-old comprehension. If he's genuine, I mean, it looks like he's not even at a 4-year-old comprehension. And this is the guy they want to defend the globe. See, this is why, again, I contemplated that this latter psyop, they're coming up with, they're finding the dumbest guys or dumbest arguments. So either the guys know what they're doing and they're disingenuous, intellectually honest, and they're in order to drive up flat Earth membership? I mean, is that their goal here? Because this guy doesn't know what fisheye lens is. I mean, come on, he's never played around with a GoPro. You can play around with the GoPro in your living room, and depending on your lens set, depending on the settings, you can see curvature there as well. Or in your backyard. That doesn't mean your living room floor or your backyard, if it's flat, that it's curved. And if this is all he can bring to the table, I mean,
that's the curvature right there. Sorry, roll that back. That's the curvature there at 130,000 feet, right there. No, not a chance.
Mark, I'm going to ask, have you ever reached the edge of the Earth if it is indeed flat?
And again, really basic, because it's strange. Even if it weren't a fisheye lens, you're going to hinge your entire faith-based belief system. Like, let's say that's not a fisheye lens. And that really does appear to show curvature, which, again, you can on both. I mean, it's an obvious fisheye lens. Even if Maltese establishment Maltese Neil deGrasse Tyson, even he didn't think to the lows, he has a pretty good explanation. I mean, it's a for dummies explanation. When you have a globe that big, I mean, again, just for the moment, let's assume, I don't want the flat earthers to get mad at me here. I'm just assuming for the sake of argument in this moment, as an example, let's say the Earth really is a globe, which, let's say it is, and it's 25,000 miles in circumference. It's so big, obviously you wouldn't see the curvature that low to the ground, because that's not really that, out of a 25,000 miles circumference. Is not that much. So the silliness of this astrophysicist, this is all he has to support his argument, and possibly dishonestly claiming that the only way to communicate across great distances, whether globe, flat, I mean, that's irrelevant. I mean, it's irrelevant what shape the Earth is. You can communicate different ways, and all these communication systems would work on either a globe or a flat plane. What's to prevent these high... He worked, this astrophysicist claims to have worked on the high altitude program. So he should know, but he's pretending that he doesn't know about the fiber optic cable. I mean, there's kindergartners who have seen the Discovery Channel programs on how those cables are laid and how they work. I mean, this is a secret. So this guy's really sillier than a kindergartner? I mean, this is the guy they think is going to defend the globe.
Truman Show, have we got
Oh, yeah, what we're talking about why I talked about the documentary. Why couldn't a planetarium, we can see all the lights on the sky. Who's to say when you walk out of a planetarium, you're just not walking into a much bigger one?
The dome. You think,
one man's advanced technology is another man's deity.
And are we the only flat Earth, or are there other flat planets out there with domes? Is the deity or other civilizations built other flat Earths, flat
No,
planets with
that's
domes?
an excellent question, because first off, we would say that anything you see in the sky are just pretty lights.
And he actually just said that. Who's to say you're not walking out of a planetarium into a much bigger planetarium? So that's the theory that Mark Sargent is alleging. I haven't, obviously he's not providing that proof for that theory in the moment, he's just explaining it. I don't know if he has definitive proof. I think he himself claims he does not. But these goofballs didn't even listen to what he said. So there's other flat Earths. So I'm not sure how he came. I mean, again, he seemed to kind of be genuine. He didn't seem that triggered or insecure like the astrophysicist Brady Tucker goofball, who's just squirming in his seat there. I mean, you can tell how triggered he is that anybody is even questioning the Church of NASA or his religion of scientists. Is quite silly.
So, Venus, Mars, and Saturn, and all those. I mean, they look spherical, they're part of the light show. But could there be other domes and other structures out there? Sure, why not? If I was more powerful enough to build this place, I wouldn't make it a one-off. Not by any stretch. I'd make more than one this.
Sorry, Kate, I just want to do a thought experiment here. So I think we would probably agree that a good cover-up would involve money, right? That someone is paying to cover it up, right?
Lots of money, yes.
Right. So then people would then profit from this cover-up, right? I think that's kind of...
profit in a way, sure.
Yeah, right. And then so we would say that NASA is complicit in this to some degree, and so they would be the beneficiaries of it, right?
In this case, we're not covering it up for profit, we're covering it up for power.
And you can see already, like, he thinks he's playing gotcha, or a little bit. Like, he's so silly and insecure. It's not right? It's that system. But even that in a professional fashion. It's all, he just wants to play gotcha with Mark Sargent. That's all he wants to do. You can see it's plain and obvious. Now, I'm not sure in what dimension you can't even understand the flat Earth conspiracy being alleged. I mean, if NASA is getting $50 to $60 million per day, what do people do for even $100? I mean, you could find somebody, people will kill each other for $5. This guy doesn't think 50 to 60 mil a day, plus, I mean, technically the $1 trillion system all propped up on the deception. If it's true, again, I'm not saying it's true. I'm not saying the letter theory is true. But if it is true, again, being objective, neutral, not going to the reasoning fallacies, is the fallacies that these have to claim to. They don't really bring anything else to the table in these media debates. I don't know why they don't actually see somebody who can, I mean, they're not going to bring it. Mark Sargent, I don't want to do Mark Sargent. He's like a relatively smart guy, but I don't think he's to be a genius of any kind. He's on a basic level. He seems to understand the basic definitions of words. He seems to understand fallacies to a certain extent. And he seems to be able to elucidate certain points in conspiracies, and he understands how conspiracies work, true or untrue, and certain motivations behind them. But this goofball is so triggered, he doesn't even understand the money involved, or I mean, does he not understand anything about any conspiracy that was eventually unraveled? Tobacco science, sugar science. I mean, obviously there's benefits, but there's also defending the dogma and status quo. It's all intertwined. I guess he doesn't understand that. I don't know.
So yes,
power's
NASA
money.
was built, and what I'm saying is the only reason NASA was even built, and by that we're talking about the United States military. NASA is absolutely Department of Defense.
NASA's actually a civilian, by the way. You can get involved with NASA.
No, I mean,
Wait, what? So whether or not you can get a job somewhere depends on it being civilian or not? What? Wow. Wow, this guy's mentally gone. I mean, civilians can get jobs with military all the time too. I mean, you can be a civilian, you're just designated as such. Nobody was that NASA only hires military. NASA is clearly a .gov agency. That's why you go to NASA.gov. What does civilians being able to get jobs places have anything to do with anything? I mean, you can get a job at even, there's certain janitors at CIA installations that are civilians. I mean, I'm not sure what his point here is. Whether or not you can get a job somewhere as a civilian, that's his metric. I mean, this guy's sillier than anybody thus far presented as an astrophysicist. Can he really be an astrophysicist being this silly? I don't know.
I'm afraid not. NASA's
I'm afraid so, because I've worked for
the
them.
defense. Look, Frank, they
So,
were
no, can I just want to finish my...
He's worked for NASA, therefore NASA can. And notice how he keeps interrupting Mark Sargent, not even letting him finish his point. I don't think Mark Sargent was insinuating here that every single... He actually does the opposite in other... I mean, it's clear this guy hasn't done any research, but at least let the guy finish his point. He said NASA's military. He didn't say every single person working at NASA is directly military and in on it. He's actually saying the opposite, but this goofball is so desperate. His ego is so triggered. He's that insecure. He's spinning his wheels so severely he can't even finish the point, so he doesn't even understand what's being alleged. Mark Sargent was not denying that civilians can work at NASA. This straw man that this supposed astrophysicist built and just keeps building up higher, this is the epitome of silliness brought forth by the model, and people are wondering why they're saying really?
Let's finish my line of reasoning. There is money, and the people are paying money. If I am saying that the Earth is round, which I apparently do because I've seen photos, and the moon and other things.
So if he's seen photos of Bigfoot and monsters, that must mean it's real. Like, his photos have never been done. So his of logic and reason, he doesn't understand what conflict of interest is. If a serial killer brings to his trial photos of are you gonna believe? I mean, he's the accused. Why would you take evidence from the accused and use that as the metric for determining whether or not the accused is telling the truth? I mean, this level of silliness. I mean, this is why I do some of these logical analyses, because why would anybody trust a scientism priest? I mean, there are scientism priests out there that are actually intelligent and bring forth logical arguments. They're still scientism priests, but at least they have some kind of mental capacity. This guy is saying the Earth is round, which, again, I mean, is it a globe? What does round mean? A flat table is round. I mean, this guy's just, he doesn't... When you don't even understand the basic definitions of words, I mean, how severe is this goofball suffering from the Dunning-Kruger effect? Because if he's so incompetent, he doesn't understand how incompetent he is. He doesn't have the mental capacity, the wherewithal to see his own incompetence. Then he'll never know, and he'll be this silly forever. And again, that's what the propaganda, scientism propaganda, indoctrinates all of these individuals, these establishment mouthpieces, into the cult of state worship, authority worship, scientism, where they don't question. If NASA is alleged to be part of the conspiracy, you're going to say use their photos to prove their conspiracy. I mean, come on. Small children wouldn't use that kind of argument.
That I'm profiting from.
Wait, so he wasn't paid? by NASA. He volunteered at NASA? He didn't receive a paycheck? He said before he worked for NASA. So did he work for no paycheck? And how did he afford to afford COVID? Like, what money did that money? Or was he paid that money from his... And again, the fundamental lack of... This is actually the worst argument I've ever heard, and I've heard some terrible ones. I mean, you can check out if I did a few about Flat Earth Logical Analysis podcast. Ever. That one has to do. But these are new lows. So is he alleging that no NASA, everyone working at NASA is a volunteer? Like everybody peddling the conspiracies of volunteer? So he has zero money, Neil deGrasse Tyson has zero money, astrophysicists are all dead broke. Like, what's the median salary of an astrophysicist? He's alleging it's zero? I mean, I'm not... What is this guy talking about? And even from... His micro-expressions are tough because he's oscillating from completely defeated, his subconscious recognizing that he was just made to look a fool by a flat earther on national television. And between just... his ego spiraling out of control and him doing any kind of damage control he thinks possible. So he thinks that Mark Sargent is alleging that the Flat Earth conspiracy makes billionaires or millionaires out of every single person peddling the conspiracy. Mark Sargent actually makes the opposite point, that none of them are actually in on it, obviously, like any conspiracy. But when you're this much of a coincidence theorist, like this astrophysicist, where there's just no brain activity, I mean, this guy seems to be relatively close to brain dead. I know that's an ad hominem in a way, but that wasn't part of my argument. He's not really able to make any logical points. Would you say that's somebody with a lot of mental activity or not? Because, again, this has nothing to do with the shape of the Earth. What he's saying doesn't even make any sense. He's saying that if, in all conspiracies, everybody involved has to be compensated at the highest level, because if he were in on the conspiracy and he was peddling it, he expects NASA to pay him billions of dollars. What was his pay stub from NASA? He was compensated. Again, that doesn't mean there is or isn't conspiracy, but is he pretending he wasn't compensated? Like, what is he talking about?
He's even wearing clothes.
Yeah, I can't even afford pants.
What you're saying is the cover-up would involve millions and millions of people, and I go the exact opposite. I'm saying compartmentalization, need to know. This is one of those things where less is more. You would absolutely keep the fewest amount of people involved. 99% of all the people that are working at NASA don't know anything. They polish capsules, and they build fuel systems, and they build rockets. The only guys that need to know are the telemetry guys and those guys above them. Scientists, pilots, and all the space agencies, except for the high brass, they don't need to know anything.
But
By the way, NASA gets a budget of $52 million a day?
I've done telemetry. That's his response. And again, you can see how this poor goofball is so triggered, so insecure. It's all about him. I worked on those projects, those high altitude moves. I worked for NASA. I've done telemetry. I mean, he's incapable of even comprehending the points Mark Sargent. He's so egotistical and narcissistic. He can't consider even the possibility that he was wrong or hoodwinked in any way. He does not question the church. He does not question the way. And of course, this goofball, he's not even anywhere near that mental level. There's really not a lot of mental activity going on here, because he can't even understand what Mark Sargent is saying. I've done telemetry. I mean, telemetry in general is just recording and transmitting readings of an instrument. So you're just collecting data. So Mark Sargent, again, I think Mark Sargent is assuming that this astrophysicist has at least a children's level of basic logic, basic English comprehension, and might not be triggered to oblivion and beyond to the point of a regular conversation, not even a quick conversation. Mark Sargent is not saying that the astrophysicist has never collected any kind of data from instruments or processed it. He's saying that if the flat Earth conspiracy is true, only the people at the highest levels would know about it. So they would be the supervisors, so to speak, of the department of the highest levels of NASA that can verify where and whatnot, where all of these things are going. So this guy's done telemetry missions. I don't know. He's too young. And so he's not even understanding Mark's point. He just heard the word telemetry, instantly got triggered, and then because of his narcissism, well, I've done telemetry. I worked for that. I worked on that program. Like, it's just so silly. They insecure goofball to do this interview, and Mark Sargent is just mopping the floor with him, which just adds to the hilarity. If Mark Sargent is wrong, it's hilarious how mopping the floor so if he believes research on the shape of the world, and that happened to be correct, he might be correct by accident, but he's just an intellectual midget when it comes to even talking to Mark Sargent, who, by his own admission, is not anywhere near a super genius of any kind. So it's all
$1 million a day. There's money to be had here, but it's not just about money.
Well, but someone has to be making it. So I guess one of the points here is what I'm trying to make.
Someone has to be making it? Of course they're making it. Does he really think everyone at NASA volunteers? I mean, I don't understand, like, this lack of just basic mental functioning from this astrophysicist. I don't understand what he's alleging here. Someone has to be benefiting. So he doesn't think any professors in academia make money? All college professors are volunteers? There's no such thing as tenure, pensions, they don't receive salaries. Nobody's making, I don't know. This guy doesn't know how, it's just really bizarre, actually. I actually kind of feel bad for this poor guy. I mean, it's clearly he's that insecure. I don't know. It's really sad now. It's moved from funny to sad now.
Is that, we can always go back and forth. You can not believe what I'm saying. That's fine. That's not the point. What the point is, when we do in science, we create experiments that are reproducible. I can go out and tell anyone when a lunar eclipse is happening, and you can see that the moon is going to look curved. You can see that as the shadow passes over the moon, it is not flat.
Alright, so a lot of suppositions there. But in general, does this goofball not understand that all of the ancient civilizations had very, very precise predictions of eclipses and astronomical events using a flat Earth cosmology? I mean, this guy is just this silly? So he's pretending his scientism is science. Obviously, that's a statement of scientism for they pretend their scientism is actual, real science. But if you're going to use the metric now, so before he said he believes the Earth is a globe, he used round, but basically a globe because of photos from the acute. That's why he believes it. And now he's saying because it's predicted build. So does that mean he would believe in a flat Earth? Does he just not know? Is he that clueless about the ancients and their very, very extensive knowledge of astronomy and astronomical events? It's really, I mean, this guy hasn't made a single legitimate point. Now he's saying the shadow over the moon, which he's presupposing is the Earth. So obviously he doesn't know. I mean, I'm actually surprised he made that point. I mean, this is the most cognitive function he's shown this entire segment. But again, how does a shadow move in either direction? Obviously it doesn't prove a flat Earth, but how does it change the globe? So he needs to spend more time looking at NASA material, and he's an astrophysicist, and he doesn't know about opaque astronomical bodies, opaque celestial bodies. He doesn't know about the visible light spectrum, or is this another case of him being collected time? Because if there are, well, I mean, according to NASA, there are astronomical bodies that are not on the light spectrum visible, similar to infrared and things of that nature. So if there are other astronomical bodies, they could be passing in front of the moon and you would get an opaque result. Well, how does that prove it's the globe? Again, it is the shadow. Yeah, that is good evidence for it. Again, there are much better arguments to make for the heliocentric globe model. I don't know why he doesn't know about any of them, but again, the very, very poor choice to go on and talk to a flat earther because he's just being embarrassed very poorly here. But perhaps I'll do a dedicated episode on eclipses and all of the different possibilities there. But yeah, he's presupposing these faith-based presuppositions of all these different things, and then he's basically using these circular reasoning arguments because of ABC, which he presupposed that means XYZ, and you can use ABC to prove XYZ. XYZ proves ABC, but if they're all presuppositions, how does that actually prove they are what he's purporting they are? Again, you'd have to be at a certain basic mental capacity to understand these things. Clearly, this astrophysicist is not.
It's actually, there's an edge to it. I can say, you know what, for $500 you can buy an off-the-shelf balloon, a tank of helium, and attach an iPhone, or a Google phone, but sometimes the Samsungs catch fire, that you can see the curvature for yourself.
But they've actually done that. So there's a whole bunch of hot air balloon footage showing a flat Earth. So did he just debunk himself here? I mean, this guy's problem. This is, I don't know. A lot of these flat Earth logical analyses have been terrible, but this guy might actually be the worst. I mean, this is bad.
But you haven't given me an experiment that I can do to show what you're saying.
But he wasn't asked. He was too busy being interrupted because this guy's playing gotcha. He never even asked for one. Now he's saying it wasn't given. But he just debunked himself because, again, Mark Sargent actually did mention the hot air balloon footage. So the exact same thing that this goofball is telling Mark Sargent to do, Mark Sargent already said was done. Not by him, not by Flat Earthers, but by just people sending up hot air balloon footage showing the flat horizon. Now he's saying you can send a hot air balloon up and it'll see a curved horizon, when clearly that is not true. Because again, this guy just doesn't know anything about lenses, optics, I mean nothing? Alright, so I don't know. I mean, I guess you figured you already mentioned the hot air balloon, so really meant that, yeah, the hot air balloon footage is the flat horizon. Again, but not that it wouldn't, because again, this astrophysicist doesn't have any knowledge of just basic trig. I mean, we're talking basics here. We're talking basics here. If the Earth is that big, if it's a 25,000, if it's that big of a globe, you wouldn't see curvature at that low height. Again, flat earthers try to pretend that proves a flat Earth. No, it doesn't. Because if the globe is that large, you wouldn't see curvature at that point. And the astrophysicist doesn't even know that. It's kind of bizarre. I'm actually a little bit surprised that he does know that because of the silly arguments that he's put forth. But anyway, again, in that area, there are certain things that were stated here, and the astrophysicist is just completely clueless. But let's see how he rebuts what Mark Sargent is going on about here with the long-distance photography.
Yeah, we just saw an image.